What if your entire body suddenly changed overnight and no one could explain why? Now imagine that same world filled with flying castles, living fire demons, and a feared wizard who secretly carries more emotional weight than anyone realizes. This is not just a fantasy story, but one built around transformation, identity, and emotional healing hidden beneath magic and war, with the core idea that the real magic was never about spells or power, but about how people change when they are forced to confront themselves. In a quiet fantasy world, Sophie lives a simple life as a hat maker, believing she is ordinary and unnoticed, while across this world stands Howl, a mysterious wizard who lives inside a moving castle that travels across the land like a living machine, feared by many and misunderstood by most. A growing war spreads across kingdoms, forcing magic users into conflict and chaos. And Sophie's life changes when she is cursed by a witch and transformed into an elderly woman overnight without explanation. Instead of falling apart, she chooses to leave her old life behind and walks into the unknown, eventually leading her directly to Howl's moving castle, a place that exists beyond normal logic. Inside the castle, she meets Calcifer, a fire demon bound to the castle's engine, and Markle, a young apprentice trying to keep everything functioning. And although Howl surprisingly allows her to stay, it becomes clear he is avoiding something tied to the war and his own identity, while Sophie's curse begins reacting to her confidence and emotional state, hinting it is connected to her self-perception. The castle becomes a strange home, where Sophie cleans and adapts while the war intensifies with cities falling, airships filling the skies, and magic being used as a weapon, while Howl refuses to join either side, revealing he is deeply burdened and running from responsibility and himself. Sophie notices Howl's shifting emotional state, and when he uses magic to protect others, his body and identity begin to deteriorate, showing magic comes at the cost of selfhood, while her own curse fluctuates with her confidence, reinforcing the idea that it is psychological as well as magical. As she grows closer to the castle's inhabitants, Calcifer is revealed to be bound to Howl through a contract that ties their survival together. And Sophie shifts from observer to active participant, choosing to protect Howl and the castle. As war escalates, Howl is forced into direct confrontation despite avoiding conflict, losing parts of his humanity through overuse of magic, while Sophie refuses to abandon him as the castle begins collapsing under emotional and magical pressure. She discovers Calcifer is bound to Howl's heart through a magical contract, revealing Howl once sacrificed part of his heart to survive, explaining his emotional detachment and avoidance of attachment. But after everything collapses, we finally see him not as a legendary wizard or feared name in war, but as someone quiet, someone present, someone no longer running. And that shift reveals something important. Howl was never afraid of war. He was afraid of being tied to anything that could hurt him, and the moment Sophie refuses to leave him, even when everything is breaking, that fear starts losing power over him. So here's the real question. Did Sophie break the curse on Howl, or did she break his fear of connection? Think about that for a second. Now let's go deeper into Calcifer, because Calcifer isn't just a fire demon powering a castle. He is literally tied to a heart, Howl's heart, which means every flicker of Calcifer's flame is directly connected to Howl's emotional state. When Howl is unstable, Calcifer burns wildly. When Howl is calm, the fire softens. So in a way, Calcifer is not just a character, he is emotion made visible. And that changes the entire meaning of the castle, because if Calcifer is emotion and Howl is identity, then what is the castle? It becomes something bigger, a system built to hold a broken heart together. But systems like that never last forever. They either evolve or collapse, and for most of the story, collapse feels inevitable until Sophie does something unexpected. She doesn't fight the system, she doesn't overpower it, she understands it. And that moment is where everything changes, because understanding is the one force magic cannot defend against. Now, here's something most viewers miss completely. The war in this story is not just background noise, it is a reflection. Every explosion outside mirrors something unstable inside the characters. The kingdoms are divided, but so are the people inside the castle. Sophie struggles with identity, Howl struggles with attachment, Calcifer struggles with freedom. Even the castle itself struggles to stay together. So when the war finally slows down, it is not just political, it is emotional balance being restored. But here's the twist. Even after peace returns, nothing truly resets because emotional damage doesn't disappear just because the conflict ends. It lingers in silence, in habits, in memory. Now let's talk about Howl's transformation in the final stages, because there is a moment where he almost completely loses himself in magic. His form becomes unstable, almost inhuman, like he is dissolving into the very power he's been using to escape reality. And that moment is critical because it shows something terrifying. The more you avoid yourself, the less of yourself remains. And Sophie witnessing this is what forces her final decision. She doesn't try to save him in a heroic sense. She doesn't overpower anything. She chooses presence, staying, not leaving. And that is what changes everything, because in this world, love is not shown through dramatic declarations. It is shown through consistency in chaos. Now, let's revisit Calcifer's breaking point, because the contract binding him and Howl is not just magical. It is emotional dependency turned physical. Two beings surviving through borrowed stability. So when Sophie approaches Calcifer at the end, she is not solving a puzzle. She is addressing a bond that was never meant to be permanent. And instead of forcing separation, she offers understanding. And that changes the entire structure of the castle itself, because once emotional dependency is acknowledged, it no longer controls you, it releases. But here's where things get even more interesting. After everything is fixed, the castle doesn't return to what it was. It doesn't become grand again. It becomes quieter, smaller, more stable, almost like it has accepted a new form, which raises a deep symbolic question. Was the castle ever meant to be powerful? Or was it always meant to be temporary? A structure built to carry broken pieces until they could stand on their own? Now let's connect everything. Sophie's curse reflects self-perception. Howl's instability reflects emotional avoidance. Calcifer reflects internalized emotion. The castle reflects the human mind trying to hold everything together. And the war reflects external pressure, forcing internal change. So when everything resolves, it is not just a happy ending. It is integration, pieces returning to where they belong. Not perfectly, but peacefully. But even then, something subtle remains. Sophie is not identical to who she was before. Howl is not identical to who he was before. Nothing goes back to normal. Because healing does not restore the past. It creates something new. And that's where the story becomes more than fantasy. It becomes psychological. Now, here's a question for you watching this. If Sophie only regained her youth when she accepted herself, does that mean her old form was never real in the way we thought? Or was it simply a reflection of how she saw herself at that time? And if that is true, then what form are any of us actually living in? Let's G. And so the moving castle finally comes to rest. The war fades into the distance, the skies grow quiet, and the broken pieces of each character begin to find their place. But what makes Howl's moving castle unforgettable isn't the magic, the flying castles, or even the breathtaking fantasy world. It's the reminder that healing isn't about becoming who you once were. It's about becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more complete. Sophie taught us that self-worth can transform how we see ourselves. Howl showed us that running from our fears only gives them more power. And Calcifer reminded us that even the smallest flame can carry an entire world forward. In the end, this wasn't just a story about breaking a curse. It was a story about accepting ourselves, facing our fears, and finding the courage to stay when everything inside us wants to run. And maybe that's the real magic of Howl's Moving Castle. If you enjoyed this recap and deep dive analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next anime journey. We explore the hidden meanings, symbolism, and emotional stories behind your favorite anime every week. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep exploring, and remember, sometimes the greatest magic isn't changing the world, it's changing how you see yourself.